they've heard this from day one, is my philosophy since I was a little boy. It goes like this: nothing's impossible. Impossible is not a fact, but an opinion. And impossible is temporary. And that I'm more afraid of 100 sheep led by one lion than 100 lions led by a sheep. And that it's all about leadership, trust, and family. And we never quit, and we never back down. And all we do is show up, committed together, trusting each other and playing. Watch and see what happens.
Program, and I believe our Chancellor, Dr. Kelly Damphousse, is going to come introduce our speaker.
Well, thank you for that wonderful applause. Thank you, Erica, for mentioning Day of Giving. This is our inaugural, not our first annual, inaugural is the right term for it. And she said we're setting records. She's being very humble. I was just on the website, and it's really remarkable how our community is coming forward to making sure that every Red Wolf counts. And so thank you all for being supportive of that if you have had a mind to do so. So it's my great honor to introduce to you Thomas Bowen. He goes by Tommy or Tommy B. And so I love that name, Tommy B. It's got a little jingle to it to me. It was interesting. So when Terry Mahaja left, and as you know, when you work with someone for a long time, you not only see them as a colleague or even a subordinate, but you start to see them as friends. It's inevitable, as much time as you spend together when you're in times of crisis and dealing with difficult issues, that you have an affinity for people that is beyond just the workplace. And I feel the same way for Len Fry. He and I have been working together for 4 years now, and Carl Cates and other people in the room here, Ruth, Dr. Hawkins, one of my favorite retired people from A-State. It's inevitable you become friends with people. When Terry shared with me that he was thinking about leaving to go to UCF, and of course there's family reasons for him to go. His parents had moved to Florida. He'd be closer to them. It's a different conference. It's a bigger school, more budget. You know what they say, more money, more problems. And so he's got a lot of those going on. But when he told me he was leaving, I was thinking, how are we going to ever replace Terry Mahaja, one of our alumni, who had invested so much of himself as a student and student athlete, and then come back and be an athletics director, and how much he's changed the athletics department here in facilities and student success on the field, but also in the classroom as well. And I determined not before too long that trying to replace Terry would be impossible. What I needed to do was find someone who could complement what Terry had done. Terry had his hair on fire for the whole time he was here, raising money and building buildings. And I felt like we needed someone who could capitalize on what Terry had built, but then take us to the next step. And so we hired a consulting firm to help us with the search. And about our third meeting, well, the first meeting I had with them, I shared with them my, here's what I think the ideal candidate would look like. And I started listing that. I had 21 different attributes, and I could see their eyes getting large. They're on Zoom, right? So I could see them kind of like who could we possibly get? The Nick Saban of athletic directors or something like that. And then so we had another couple of meetings, and then they came back the third meeting and said, hey, what do you think about Tom Bowen? And I said, well, I know Tom. I met him a couple times in the past, and you think he'd be interested in Arkansas State? In the past, we've hired people who had been assistant ADs before, and people with not as much experience. Terry didn't have any experience as a sitting AD when he came here. Guy's got a lot of experience. I was not sure he wanted to come. No, Tom really is interested in the position. If you don't know much about Tom, he grew up in California. Father was an FBI agent. He's a California guy. He spent some time working for the San Francisco 49ers. He worked at UC Berkeley and a couple of others, a small college there in California, and then eventually became the athletics director at San Jose State and took that program that was really mired in some difficulties, some challenges. I think, Tommy, is it true that they had voted to get rid of football there or something like that? And they had, and so he came in to a university that was trying to get rid of their football program. He rescued that program, did outstanding work there. So he served as a AD from 2004 to 2012 at San Jose State. And then he went to another state. He went to Memphis State. And I always say Memphis State because that's where Len Fry graduated from. And they call it University of Memphis State University, I think is what they call it now, Memphis State University of Memphis or something like that. But he went to Memphis State, and he was there from 2012 to 2019. And those of you who are here in Arkansas and were paying attention to athletics at Memphis, you know that there was a huge transformation when Tom got there as well. And so he left Memphis State or University of Memphis and went into private consulting and was helping athletics departments consider where their programs are right now, and what would it take to get to the next level, whatever that next level will be. And one of his clients was Arkansas State University, and so he knew our institution very well. He knew Terry very well, and he understood who we were, which is why he reached out and said, I really want that job. And so when we met with him, actually I was over in Memphis over in Oxford watching our baseball team play against Ole Miss. And that was the time we scheduled for a Zoom meeting. And we ended up losing that game like 12-1. But I spent the whole baseball game in the AD's office on a Zoom with him. It was supposed to be a half-hour Zoom and ended up being over an hour and a half. And because as the more we talked, the more we realized how perfect of a fit he was for Arkansas State for what we needed. And so we're really excited to have him here. There's a lot of accomplishments here, really accomplished a lot of activity in the NCAA with the admin of the College Football Playoff Committee and with the Football Oversight Committee in the NCAA. He was instrumental in creating the American Athletic Conference, which they dubbed P6, which means that there's one level below everybody, the P5, and one level above all of us. And so they did a great job branding that. But that conference wouldn't have existed without Tommy's leadership when he was at University of Memphis. And so it's my pleasure to introduce to you, as I was introduced to him the first time when our consultant said, "What do you think about Tommy B?" I said, "Tommy B?" He said, "Yeah, that's what he goes by, Tommy B." So it's my great honor to introduce my new friend, Tommy B.
Well, good day. I am, my mother used to call me Tommy, so that's kind of where that comes from. So I'm excited to be here. I really am. I want to thank Chancellor Damphousse and my colleagues and Len and all the faculty that are here and everybody here, Erica from my Vice Chancellor's group and everybody that's here, because it's really exciting for me to be here. And I mean that in a way that it's kind of embracing what I always thought it would be like to be at a school where you were welcomed as a member of a family, as you felt part of a family, you felt that it really fit. This is my third institution to lead as the Director of Athletics, or as I'm known now as the Vice Chancellor of Athletics, which is getting hard to get used to, but normally been a director most of my life. This was the best welcome of any place I've ever been. The people of Jonesboro, the community, the student athletes, the coaches, the administration, everybody in this town has welcomed me and my wife, Mia, and my two boys, Andrew and Peter, and my daughter, McKenna. I'm very, very proud to serve you, to serve this community, to build with these head coaches, and to serve this institution to create something so extraordinary that the whole world will know what Jonesboro is all about. Great people, great educators, great student athletes, great coaches, and what a great place to live. And I'm excited to be here. I mean that sincerely. I bought a house on May 12th. I get to take the keys. I guess I become officially part of the dirt in Jonesboro because I'll own some of it. It's kind of exciting. Today, I was wondering, because I am a Rotarian. I was in the San Jose City chapter for a very, very long time. I've always loved being a Rotarian. I thought we did great work, and we continue to do, and clearly this club has done great work too. So I'm honored to be among fellow Rotarians. I like what we represent, always have. Is it the truth? Is it good for all concerned? Those are powerful statements in our world, especially in a world that's gone through what we've seen the last 18 or 19 months. So it's powerful to be a Rotarian. We do make a difference. And so I'm proud to be among you today. So thank you for letting me speak to you. I hope I can give a somewhat entertaining presentation. I'm sure the best part will be the questions and answers. So we'll wait for that part. But I'd like to tell you a little bit about what's going on, mostly what's going on in college athletics, a little bit nationally, give you a little bit of updates of what's going on regionally, and just tell you what we're doing for the Arkansas State Red Wolves and what you can expect every time you come to a game or contest or practice at every sport, at every level we play. I will tell you that college athletics has never been more stressed and challenged and pushed since World War II was probably the last time it happened. It started World War II when college athletics was suspended, as it been now in the COVID-19 pandemic. There has been an amazing amount of challenges put forward for student athletes, for their eligibility, for head coaches and their careers, for institutions, universities, chancellors, athletic directors, students, and fans. It's been nothing like anybody thought it would be. It was bubbled, it was on, it was off. We're playing, we're not playing, we're playing half a game, we don't play a game. These guys are sick, they're not, we're good. We're not sure what we're going to do. And the NCAA keeps saying, we're looking at it. We really are looking at it hard. We're figuring it out. And meanwhile, everybody had to govern their own ship, become master of their own destiny, figure out what they could do and how best to serve the student athletes, because they were the most affected by this experience. They were the ones most, not cheated, but most left to figure out what it would be like, because we didn't stop their clock. We counted it as eligibility. And so that hurt. And until about 5 weeks ago, we weren't going to let you transfer anywhere you want or give you your year back. But the great gods of the NCAA decided we'll give you your year back, and that will be better. And so now we move into post-COVID-19 and the national scene in college athletics. What does it mean? It means more chaos, but it really means opportunity. And what I want to share with you is that I'm positioned and we're positioned and all the coaches are positioned, and these student athletes can't wait to get after it, to go out and take this chaotic leadership dynamic and create opportunity for Arkansas State athletics. I think it's important to know that Terry Mahajer and I are more than just colleagues. We are very close friends and have been for a very long time. I used the same architect that you used here at Arkansas State. He didn't do as nice a job at my place as he did, my place being Old Memphis, as he did here. So I'm a little, Terry must have given, a lot more incentives because my place was a struggle. But I'm very, very pleased to tell you that as I came up here every year from 2012 to 2019 to see Terry, to hang out with Terry, to watch what was happening, I became more and more impressed at what Arkansas State was becoming. I think it's fair to say this is not your grandfather's Arkansas State. Certainly not in athletics, and certainly not in academics, and certainly not what's happening. So it's exciting times. And as we rally for the 21-22 year, I would like to share with you some things I think are important. These student athletes are committed. I shook hands with every single student athlete before I ever stepped in front of a microphone for a press conference. I wanted to know what I was going to be a part of, who I was going to serve, and who was going to follow me. Coaches are extraordinary. They have kept positive. They have fought through a lot of adversity, and they can't wait to go out and prove to the world what we can do in college athletics here at Arkansas State. These student athletes want to compete at the highest level, and they want to win. They want to win because our colors mean something, because our legacy means something, because who we are is who we are. We are Red Wolves. And before that, we were Indians. And before that, you need to stay away from us because we were really dangerous. We know what we were. But we've always been really good at everything we've done. The legacy, the alumni, they believe that. The coaches are ready. We're prepared. But you should know a little bit about my leadership and what it means, because I lead different. I'm different than Terry. He's a hard act to follow. It's like the old saying, you'd rather follow a painter named Barney than a painter named Picasso. So I follow Picasso. So I got to paint a little different. I think it'll get into sculpting. Maybe they won't get compared. But I promise you, my leadership focuses on some key elements. First and foremost is in my department and in my coaching staff and in our student athletes. They've heard this from day one, is my philosophy since I was a little boy. It goes like this: nothing's impossible. Impossible is not a fact, but an opinion. And impossible is temporary. And that I'm more afraid of 100 sheep led by one lion than 100 lions led by a sheep. And that it's all about leadership, trust, and family. And we never quit, and we never back down. And all we do is show up, committed together, trusting each other and playing. Watch and see what happens. These student athletes are ready to show you and the world and the coaches and the university and our alumni what's possible. The Sun Belt Conference is going to be interesting this year. It's going to be really challenging. Some schools are coming out. But God's given a blessing, in my opinion, to Arkansas State University, to our football program. October 7th and October 21st are two nationally broadcast games. Nationally broadcast games. 220 million people turn on their television set, wherever that is, and that includes all the places I've been around in other parts of the country, and they turn on the Arkansas State Coastal Carolina game or the Arkansas State Louisiana Lafayette game. But who's on stage that day? Rotarians, I'll tell you who's on stage. The city of Jonesboro, the community of Jonesboro, the people that live within 250 miles of this place, the people that know Northeast Arkansas. That's our chance to shine, because every commercial breaks with a shot of Jonesboro or a shot of our city or a shot of our community. And every comeback in after commercials breaks with a shot of our city or a shot of our team. Take advantage of this. So I'm challenging you today, my fellow Rotarians, that Thursday night, October 7th, we need to have an entirely filled stadium. There's 67,000 people that live here. If they all came, we couldn't let them in. So how's it possible that we can only get 8 or 9 or 10,000 people? You tell me. I tell you, nothing's impossible. It's not a fact, it's an opinion, and it's temporary. So enough talking about what is and what isn't. My challenge as a new Vice Chancellor, Athletic Director of Arkansas State, is that we as a community, me as the Vice Chancellor, I will be the loudest shouting voice on this whole process. And so if you remember one thing about my speech today that matters most, is that on October 7th and October 21st, you and everybody in your neighborhood, your dog, grab your other people that can't read or write, I don't care, put them in the car, bring them to the game. We need everybody here to make a statement to the world. Because with this coming year, with this leadership, with this chancellor, with these people that work so hard to make this university great, it's our one opportunity to show the world. And I'll put it in perspective so you understand. There isn't another school in the group of 5 that will be on national TV twice within 3 weeks. So what are you prepared to do? We're prepared to do everything we can, get in the game, defeat our opponent, and sing the fight song. But Jonesboro, Rotarians, community, outreach, what are you prepared to do? I need your help. One voice makes one change. 50 voices, it's another 50 to 200 people saying the same thing. Eventually, thousands of people ask, why aren't you going to be there Thursday night? The place to be. October 7th, October 21st are 2 great days. We also are going to have a really good volleyball program, which we'll put out some of that stuff. We're going to push everything we can. But the only reason I bring that up is because I'm in the community service organization here today, and we make a difference in the city and all that we do, and I need your help. And since we're Rotarians, I'm not quite a part of this club, but I guess I could be. I want you all to know I need your help. So I will open it to questions. I'm sure, I could talk about all kinds of things. I can talk about anything you want to talk about, but I'd rather talk about what you want to talk about than be up here just giving my speech. So anybody got a question?
Yeah, you mentioned about the transfers of college athletes.
Sure.
I'm lost on what the rules are right now. What are the rules on their ability to transfer between?
Great question. So remember the NCAA eligibility process is tied to the start of your clock and the closing of your clock. So when you enter as a freshman, your clock starts, and then it's allowed to have 5 years of eligibility and play 4 if that's what you do. In other words, you have a redshirt year if you'd like it or not. So what's happened is COVID-19 created a whole series of student athletes who played or weren't allowed to play in a season. Okay, so the equity issue became when the COVID first hit, the spring of 20, all those athletes weren't allowed to compete. So in theory, they had lost a year of eligibility in what's called force majeure or a pandemic or an act of God, however you want to call it. And so they were given the opportunity then to receive an additional year. So once you set in motion that part, then it had to carry into the fall and it had to carry into the winter. And so that's where this sits. The one-time transfer rule allows any student athlete with eligibility left to transfer without penalty up until probably July 1st is when it will stop. So right now, student athletes who are at University X decide they'd like to try University Y. Now there's some issues here because University Y doesn't have to take them. The coach at University Y may not have room on his roster. The roster numbers and scholarship numbers haven't changed. So we haven't created more scholarships so kids can move around whether here or there. But you can transfer in football and men's and women's basketball without penalty, which means you can go to one school and go to another. Conferences last 2 weeks ago dropped the interconference rules of transfer. So the American Athletic Conference, the Atlantic Coast Conference, the Big Ten Conference, the Big 12, you can transfer from school to school during this window of time. The Sun Belt Conference is yet to do that. It is still being discussed by our commissioner and what we're trying to do. But right now, if I'm a student athlete, I have a right to transfer and be eligible immediately wherever I can if I can get in and they have room for me. That will end in July. That answer that?
Do you need someone to sponsor you in our club? I mean, there's about
Sure.
29 people here at least that would say
Sure.
yes.
Yes, I'd love to be a member. I'm good. Do I just like rotate my Rotarianism from San Jose to here? I don't know how that works, but yeah, fine. Yeah, perfect. I would love to. Any questions about athletics or? I have to sit out here. I'll sit out. Sure, I'll sit out here. Anybody? Yes, ma'am.
What do you consider to be your greatest challenge here?
Well, it's building the program to continue to move forward. And college athletics is an expensive endeavor. It creates pressure points a lot because of the cost of doing business and playing at the highest level. So we compete at Arkansas State, the highest level. We're part of the Football Bowl Subdivision Series, Division I. And therefore, all the 337 athletes are considered the highest level of amateurism in our industry outside being an Olympian. So what you have now is you have the pressure to continue to move forward. And so that's why I started a scholarship drive for the first time. So we actually allow people to give money directly to scholarship because the student athlete rules have changed where you can sponsor a student athlete with a scholarship. That changed about 2 years ago. So now an individual can give a scholarship for a position or a student athlete, and that student athlete then can communicate with them. They can talk, they can text, they can meet for brunch or a breakfast or a dinner that's organized by the department. So that whole, what used to be no contact from donor to student athlete has changed. It's opened up the ability to create a scholarship drive. So we launched that 2 weeks ago, right after I launched the priority point system, so that everybody has a chance to get a ticket for the game that's never been played in 2025 between Arkansas. So these two strategic moves were designed to create, competitive, put us in position to move the program forward. The greatest challenge right now is to see how the economy revives itself, to see what happens in our daily lives. I mean, college athletics is important, but it's not everything about life. It's just a part of us, but it's not. So it's really about see how the cities in the state and how the part of the South begins to recover and comes full-fledged, because you want to be able to have full stadiums in September. You want to be able to have full arenas. You want to be able to have the ability to come and enjoy, your university's athletic program. So for me, those are the challenges are, will we continue to vaccinate? Will we continue to have this extraordinary success here in the state of Arkansas where people are vaccinated at a very high level and COVID seems to be at bay a bit, although I feel for those people. I took a tour of St. Bernard's yesterday, and there are people still in the ICU battling that. So that it's real. It's not fake. It's real. So I'm hoping that it calms and we can get back to some sense of normal. Well, that's I want to get my student athletes are becoming more and more vaccinated. So and that's the real pressure that's going to be in the NCAA is what if students aren't vaccinated. And then you have this population that is, then who's allowed to compete and who isn't? And how do you create, so we're going to have to test again. And then, how does it, so there's a lot that's going to happen in college athletics in the next 6 weeks. A lot of decisions going to be made in the next 6 weeks for sure.
What is the status of the women's softball team and where will they play?
The women's softball team is in status I would consider it good. And they're very, very talented and they've won a national championship. And as I begin my process, this marks my 6th week. And I will tell you, I've already started to address it, certainly put together my file. I'm looking forward to meeting with people on campus and discussing how right now it's not a Division I program. So for me, there's a lot of steps that have to take place. So it's really about coming to the university and saying, hey, what are we going to do about our club program in softball that our students play? And how do we make it an opportunity then for someday for our student athletes or these to become student athletes? It's not a complicated process. It's a timing process and one that I'm fully aware of. There's been a lot of work done prior by Terry with some facility mock-ups and some what it looks like feasibility studies. What I'll create is more of a benchmark timeline so there can be some actual pieces of it that happen as it moves forward. And that's of course, if they want to play at Division I too. I've not talked to them yet. So that's the other question. There, one of the things we do a lot in our business is we do a lot of interest. So we'll also talk to other club programs that are there, and there's possibilities of creating even different programs. So, it's my responsibility to make sure that we are compliant with allowing opportunities for young female student athletes at Arkansas State, for sure.
What are your plans or your ideas on bringing in quality teams to Jonesboro to play football, 2-for-1?
Sure.
1-for-1?
Sure. So as you know, football scheduling is kind of pretty far out. So I'm diving in the 25, 26 era. But I have a lot of contacts, a lot of good contacts. So without divulging any kind of conversations, I will tell you that talk to some ACC, talk to a Big 12 school, talk to a Pac-12 school. So the idea would be a 2-for-1 where we would play there, they play here, we go back, play again, and we get paid on the third trip. So you get played on the third leg of it. So the way the 2-for-1 works is you play there and they play here, and you go back and play there and you play for a reduced guarantee because you already got a home game out of them. We certainly need to do that for all kinds of reasons. I've certainly sat down with basketball and really talked to both coaches about putting good quality non-conference home opponents here for sure. The arena is fabulous. It's a wonderful place. I think we can attract a lot of good, and it's easy to get to. So for me, those are kind of priorities when scheduling. Right now we're in midst in scheduling. Butch and I should know that my philosophy in scheduling, I don't know what Terry's was, but mine was that my head coaches and I sit down together and carve this up. So, I've met with the basketball coaches and told them I'm going to meet with the spring coaches when their spring season ends. And then the volleyball coach and I have talked about it. And then Butch and I have started conversations about, what do we do going forward? We are locked in some contracts that are not simple to just push out. So, Terry did a great job getting 22, 23, and 24 kind of locked down. So 25 is kind of open. Who knows? Then here's the other thing. Who knows what happens with some of the non-conference in 22 or 23, whether somebody decides to move on us, or as you guys know, Michigan made a move in your 21 schedule, right? So you or 20 schedule, wasn't it? I think Michigan was supposed to play in 20 and move. So I think those are possibles, but my philosophy is to get really good non-conference opponents here. I think Memphis being here, which is the deal that Terry and I put together, is a strong statement. I mean, I'm looking forward to it, quite frankly. I like Kevin UCA here. I think that's a good opponent. They're a little scary if you're not prepared for them, but I do think it'd be good to get some of the FCAs and FCS rivals that are here in our state. I think the Arkansas game might be one of the greatest historical moments in the whole state. That should be a game day. That should be game of the week. That should be game of the century. I think things are going the right way. I do. So anyway, anybody else? So great question, because I'm in the process of putting together kind of an informative packet for all of Jonesboro, all the community, all season ticket holders and everything like that. So what I know is that working directly with Shane Broadway and the leadership down in Little Rock, I've been able to kind of navigate through some of the dynamics of what's going on with masks not mandated, but masks recommended, social distancing required, but not necessarily enforced, right? So the dynamic of, self-choice and self-reliance on your own ability to stay positive in your approach and test negative, right? That's kind of the motto, right? So I think what will happen is we'll probably do that. It'll probably be, by that time, hopefully the vaccination rate will be high enough to where there won't be a real concern. The only concern I would have is, we can't control who comes to Jonesboro. So that's the X factor, right? So then it's going to be more about working with those programs and teams. But I absolutely think we'll be able to do that. I'm hopeful we'll be able to do it just like we used to. I mean, that's a goal. But again, Governor Hutchinson's been great. And, I had a chance to meet with him. I don't know if you guys know, I went to the legislature and I testified in front of the House of Representatives, and then went back 2 weeks later and testified in front of the Senate and about name, image, and likeness, which I thought one of you guys would ask me about it. But that's kind of what's on the docket, what we're dealing with right now. That's probably the most pressing thing. Name, image, and likeness. So that's the student athlete's ability for the first time ever in 100 years to have the right to create their own brand, to create their own image and likeness, and to solicit their own basically independent LLC industry, whether it's a golf kid giving golf lessons or a tennis student athlete giving lessons or going to camps or allowing social media businesses or allowing endorsements or whatever we want to contain it into. It's a very complicated, very unorganized state by state legislatures that have passed it. As of today, it's passed by Mississippi, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, Arkansas, Tennessee, Iowa, Maryland, California, Florida. I mean, the list, 37 states eventually will pass all this legislation in the next 3 weeks, allowing all these student athletes to create their own image and likeness. There are no compliance rules around it. There's no box around it. They have the right to seek an agent, which is even more complicated because it's not an agent like a representation agent, like when I was in the NFL. It's an agent like a sponsorship agent. So you get to go out and see if anyone wants to sponsor you. The federal government has a bill in the Senate. 2 United States senators are calling the College Athlete Economic Reform Act. If that passes, it should make a national umbrella. And the NCAA has not come out with any direction yet, and we still wait. So it's really complicated what's happened in college athletics. Some see it as the doomsday of all time to allow student athletes to actually earn a additional income despite what we put forward for them. Some see it as a long time overdue. Wherever you sit on it, the problem is that it's not correctively run, it's not governed, and it doesn't have any compliance in it. Our job will be to educate all of our student athletes, educate all of the donors, and educate everybody we can about what name, image, and likeness looks like. I'm not real sure. Does that mean I get to get paid if I go to Andy's and say this is the best milkshake I ever had? Well, in theory, you could. Also, I don't know how many people want to have sponsored athletes doing that. There's no understanding. Nobody knows the market. Nobody even knows the bandwidth of what's happening. So that's what's been consuming college athletics for the last 3 years and what is now come full tuition. So Governor Hutchinson signed the bill last week. We now have a law in the state of Arkansas that student athletes at all levels, all schools in higher education are allowed to brand their name, image, and likeness. And they can use our logos if they want, and they can use an agent and then go out and make money. So that's the part that's the most concerning for me right now. Yes, sir. Well, that's a great question because I think some of the states like Alabama's legislation is a lot more loose than Louisiana's legislation, and Florida's is like it's wild, wild west. And so what you have is you have all these states are trying to give their schools an advantage in what could become a very shady, dark, and ugly business that college athletics has never done, right? They've never cheated, never did that before. So I think it's fascinating that you've literally opened the floodgates and you don't have a boat. That's what it feels like. So that's why the 2 senators, one from Maryland and one from Connecticut, in the United States Senate, are the best, shall we say, stopgap to control some of this blanket differences that take place from each state to state. The one in Arkansas that I've testified to, and I would tell you during the 2 years I ran my company called Bellwether, I had offices in San Francisco, offices in Germantown. I worked for probably over 30 universities and athletic directors and what have you in that 2-year period, mostly about this subject, that the law in Arkansas is the most favorable to not allow for mistakes. It outlines that you can't get endorsed by casinos or tobacco companies or liquor distributors or what have you. Now, there are some states that really didn't put those kind of guidelines in. And so you have kind of all kinds of movement. But the one in Arkansas is the one that has the most stability to not be overturned or sat upon by a federal mandate. So I'm encouraged. Wow. No more questions. Well, thank you again. I love being here. I'm very excited. And we're going to have a great, great, great year. So wolf's up.
All right. Thank you, Tom, for coming and visiting with us. And we can just get that membership transferred here whenever you're ready. So, all right. Next week, we'll have Shane Broadway come speak to us about some of the highlights in the last session General Assembly. Thought for the day. Average leaders raise the bar on themselves. Good leaders raise the bar for others. Great leaders inspire others to raise their own bar. Warren Woodward. Appreciate everyone being here. Appreciate being here, and great program, and look forward to some sports this fall and next year. So hopefully things will get back to normal quickly. All right. And we will adjourn.